Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to this session in the Black Muslim Festival, where we are talking about that wealth that we very rarely talk about, which is our health. And I'm joined today by Idil Farah, who's a certified everything, which she's going to tell you about, inshallah. But we are really here to talk about food as medicine. We're going to talk about your kitchen being your pharmacy. And if you have been attending the conversations over the weekend, then you'll know that the thinking behind this is that our health is one of obviously the things we will be questioned about, and one of the things that it really is one of the most precious things. All the other wealth that people chase, whether it is financial, whether it's fame, whether it's power, or none of it means anything if you don't have your health. So I'm excited to continue this conversation with you. I think it's a game-changing conversation for our community. I think it's a very empowering conversation for our community, because your health, especially through what you eat, is something you have control over. And you know we're all about empowerment and taking back control. So Idil, tell us a little bit about you, about kind of how you got to this stage in your journey, inshallah, and then we're going to dive right in.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hope you are well and in good health. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Idil Farah. I'm a nutritionist and health educator from Toronto, Canada. I really am a mother. I'm an ancestral foodie. I'm continually inspired by the power of food and its ability to heal and help us thrive. My life's work is really helping individuals take an active role in their health by using food as their medicine and their kitchen as their pharmacy. And you ask, I always say this kitchen pharmacy, and I want to explain that a little bit. The idea of kitchen pharmacy cycles back to the time when we used the farm as the pharmacy, when we used food as our medicine, herbs, spices, holistic ways of healing as the way that we took care of ourselves. I truly believe that what you put at the end of your fork is the most important decision you make every day for your health. Food is medicine, it's information, it informs every cell in your body, and it's the most powerful drug in the world. It works for 100% of the people. It could be the most powerful medicine, or it could be the strongest poison you put in your body every day. So this conversation is necessary, not just because of what's happening in our world, but because as Muslims, our number one job is ibadah and worshiping Allah. And how can we worship Allah when we don't take care of the vessel where our soul resides, right? The most important thing after our shahada is our prayers, and really performing our prayers and physically being able to show up is important. It's important to our salvation. It's important in worshiping Allah. And if we can't even do that, if we can't mentally and physically show up, then we really like neglect an important part of our deen. So today, I really am excited to have this conversation.
I love it. And I just remember when you did a workshop with us before, and it was, subhanAllah, this Muslim self-care conference, that's it. And, you know, you were just talking about food in a way that I actually found it quite revolutionary. And I know it's, you know, it makes sense, you know, when you think about it, you know, everything you're saying makes sense, but you know, when you laid it down like that, and you've kind of mentioned a couple of things, you know, such as, you know, the food that you eat being in the cells in your body, and really laying the foundations of everything. You know, although we know it, that biologically that's how it is, I feel like, and this is just for myself, and guys, let me know if in the chat if this resonates with you, but I feel like we just don't give food that much importance, nor do we acknowledge that food has that kind of power. What do you say to that?
I agree. I think that we have gotten sucked into this whole pharmaceutical medicine being the way of life, right? That we can heal everything by taking a pill, right?
Right.
And yes. Conversation, we need to bring that back, because in the Quran, there's food is mentioned so often. In the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's etiquette, the way of eating, how to eat food, what foods to combine. There's so much that is like around food, and that implies how important food is, right? Because after being a believer and your prayers, it's actually eating bread, right? Because sustenance is important to your like ibadah. Like you cannot really be fully show up if you're not taking care of your physical health. So food has huge power, and I really look at it as a drug, right?
Yeah, I heard you say that. I heard you say that, and I'd love for you to just, I'm just sitting back, guys, yeah, because I'm just like, talk to us about food as a drug. What do you mean by that?
So food is the most powerful drug in the world. It informs every cell. When you eat, food is broken down, it's digested, it is passed on to each cell in your body. Now, that level of information that food provides tells your body whether to thrive or to break down and like develop disease, right?
Wow.
Every 10 years, our DNA regenerates itself, right? And the two factors that affect that is our lifestyle and what we eat, right?
Wow.
So certain, we all have like genetic predisposition to disease, or we have like all these health, our body then decides, okay, am I going to turn on like the disease part of my genetics, or am I going to turn on the healing part and thriving and like really like, you know, really like becoming like a powerful body, like a healthy, powerful body, right? So food has that kind of power. It informs your cells on what to do. And we have forgotten that. And so it is what the bite on the end of your fork decides who you're going to be next week, a year from now, like 10 years from now, how you're going to age, what disease you're going to develop, who you're going to be, your mental capacity, your physical health, how you move, inflammation, everything, your mood, I mean, hair on your head, the like skin, everything is decided by what you're eating. And if we're not aware of this powerful drug that we're consuming, and you know, then we're really signing up for disease.
Oof. Wow, guys, give me something in the chat, boy, because I remember when I first heard that, I was like, stop it, no. But I'm just gonna just reiterate for myself, what you have at the end of your fork determines basically all of these different areas of who you're going to be in a year's time, 5 years time, or whatever. And I remember you talking about the food that we eat today being either like an investment in a healthy future, or it's almost like it's a withdrawal from a healthy future. Talk to us about that.
100%. You're investing in your future self. If you think about like retirement, how we put away money for when we get older so we can live and be able to support ourselves financially. But really, your finances make no difference if you don't have the health and your well-being.
Yeah.
You know, there's a saying that says health is a crown you wear on your head that only the sick person sees, right?
Wait, no, say that again, please. Say
yeah,
that
I'm gonna say
again.
it's an Arabic you know, saying, but it's الصحة تاج لا يراها إلا المريض, which is the health is like a crown that only the sick person sees, right?
Wow.
Because without your health, you are nothing. When we take it down to the most basic of the basics, right? You could have, like, when it impacts your ibadah as a Muslim, if that is our number one priority, is to worship Allah. If it impacts the most basic of basic things, and if it also impacts the fact that you can have all the goals, all the financial security, but if you're not able to get out of your bed to accomplish these goals and thrive in your body, then really what difference does any of that make?
Yeah. Even I'm just thinking in terms of, you know, the financial goals and the house and the pool and the car and the kids and everything. If we're not nourishing ourselves in a way that allows us to have even a good mood, because our mood can be affected by what we eat as well, can't it?
Oh, 100%. Thoughts, your it all starts with your brain, but our brain and our gut connection is so strong. There's over 90, like there's so many like neurons and so many conversations happening constantly that if you're not um, really eating the right foods, that could lead to things like anxiety, depression. It could lead into like dementia, Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative diseases. It could also lead to this like foggy brain syndrome that we talk about so much nowadays, because there are people who look well, but who are unable to kind of catch their thoughts, who feel like their brain is almost broken. And that has to do with your digestion directly.
Wow. Okay, so let's make this a bit simple. I mean, I know it's a bit simplistic, but just
Yes.
for the sake of just knowing. Okay, so when we talk about good, is there such a thing as good food and bad food?
Really, food, there is no such thing as good food or bad food. But my whole thing about that is, if food is made in a lab, then
It's
is it
not
made in
food.
nature or is it made in a lab? You need to ask yourself that question, because food that is made in nature is Allah's creation is always perfect
Oh,
in
yeah.
a way that food works synergistically. There are nutrients in food that work together to help your body in ways that you can never get from a bottle, right? If you're iron deficient, they'll tell you to take iron, but iron works together with vitamin C, right? In spinach, you get vitamin C, you get iron, you get fiber, you get vitamin A. I mean, it is in one. It's hydrating. It does so many things. So what you find in nature cannot be given to you in a bottle. And what's produced in a lab can never match what's produced in nature. So eating food, whole foods, real foods, foods that your grandmother recognizes is entirely the point of like food as medicine.
That really reminds me of what Brother Nadir was talking about yesterday when he was talking about the difference between currency and wealth. Where currency is basically like it's printed paper with a promise to pay something manufactured basically, whereas wealth is something tangible which has intrinsic value like gold or silver or something like that. This reminds me of that, where obviously we call it all food, but just like we call it all wealth, right? People think money is wealth, just like they think gold is wealth. But that distinction between food that is real food that nourishes the body and manufactured stuff which tries to nourish the body sometimes, and other times maybe not for that necessarily, but that's a really interesting distinction, I think.
I think where you need to look, for me, it's about this. Food that comes from the ground, from a healthy soil, brings with it nutrients that then nourishes your body and tells it how to behave. Whereas something that's made into a lab will have a certain effect and then will give you side effects. It isn't just giving you like, it may be giving you like 1% nourishment, but there's all these side effects. And the same goes for medication. When you eat food, it nourishes you, it heals you, it helps you thrive. Whereas in medicine, it works only for 60% of the population. And if that, because 60% is kind of like the cohort that was a part of the studies that were done around this medication. If somebody who wasn't like who was like you was not a part of that study, then that medication may work for you, but it's not going to work for you perfectly, right? So, but food, 100% of the people it works for, 100%.
As you're saying about, the things made in a lab and everything, it reminds me, my father always used to, we had a conversation once and he was saying, that breakfast cereals are just a scam, right? And I was like, what do you mean, Dad? Come on. And he was like, this is just nonsense. It's not real food. It's something that was created by the marketing industry in the States, where they made it to be like this really convenient way to feed your children, fortified with vitamins and all of this stuff. But it's basically not anything compared to what we would have eaten for, he was saying, you know, what we would have eaten for breakfast, like oatmeal porridge, for example, or, any of the things that people would normally eat when they're not having cereal, and which most people still do eat today because they don't have the breakfast cereal culture. But what is the deal with, so these vitamin fortified and, and all these things that we're told, this is great for you, that's great for you, milk for the calcium and this and that. I mean, like, come on, just blow the lid off everything.
The whole thing is we have decided to break food into nutrients and vitamins and like minerals, whereas in it and calories, where food is not that way. Food is synergistic. It works in tandem, it works together. And we've like I just said, I've mentioned spinach, but there's so many other foods that have multiple nutrients, right? And so people are marketing to us because, convenience is the name of the game nowadays.
Thank you. We are sacrificing so much in the name of convenience. So much, guys. Wow. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, but there's price to pay for everything. And convenience comes with this thing where, like, I mean, if you knew the amount of people who were marketing to you when you're eating whatever foods you're eating, that cereal box, everything it's telling you on the outside is not being regulated. If it has 1% whole wheat, 1% out of 100, they could claim that it has a whole wheat item. You have to be an ingredients, know what you're signing up for and what you're putting in your body. If the first 5 ingredients are sugar, sugar, sugar in 5 different names, then you need to know that.
5 different names of sugar, please. Educate us so that we can, look for ourselves. So sucrose, fructose, corn syrup, sucrose. There's so many different names, but the thing is and the chemicals that go in. If something is staying on the shelf for a year, what does it take to keep that food on the shelf for a year? And how much sodium and preservatives are in there? Now, to have convenient foods occasionally is one thing, but for that to be your whole diet, it's a whole other conversation. And the art of cooking is, it's basically, I call it a life skill, right? You need to know how to cook. Because this is about survival. It's not a man-woman thing. It is a survival thing. And it's about taking control of what's going in your body. If you're taking medicine and somebody else is really giving you a pill, would you do that? No, you wouldn't. But if you knew what you're putting in your body, what like the oils that go in there, the spices that go in there, all of that has an impact, right? So for me, one of the messages, the reason my kitchen is my pharmacy is because food is my drug of choice. That's how I look after my health, right? It's my primary source of healthcare. I like living. Whole foods are the number 1 on the list. The more green, the better, because they're the best bang for your buck, easy to digest, really like nourishing, hydrating, full of vitamins and minerals, and full of fiber. So they help your body eliminate all those toxins. So that is my number 1 thing. Herbs and spices, that's what medicine used to be made of, right? So looking back into that medicine cabinet, reclaiming our cultural foods, what our grandparents ate, our DNA recognizes 3 generations back. Wow. So your grandparents is what your DNA recognizes as food. So margarine is not really, your body's like, what is this? It's sitting toxic. Your cells don't recognize it. It's inflammatory food. Your body thinks this is a foreign substance, starts to attack it, right? Is this true? Is this true?
Yes, it's better to eat butter than to eat, because your grandparents ate butter. Right. They know what that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would actually say it's better to have coconut oil, avocado oil, because these are foods that not only just feed your brain, but they also bypass the liver and they don't really clog your systems, right? Whereas in butter, it has saturated fat, and it's really important to eat it in moderation.
Moderation. So I have a question here because somebody asked about, why are whole foods and these good foods, and she mentioned olive oil, why are they so expensive? And McDonald's and other foods like that is like so cheap. Like, how are we supposed to be able to afford all this good food? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, good. So I always say, remember when chickens used to walk around, and that was the natural way of things, and they used to like, and now food is being produced in extremely large quantities, in monocultures, in corn is being grown like one thing at a time, and it's killing not only our soil, but it's killing it's making certain foods more expensive than the others, right? So in terms of McDonald's, first they get subsidies. They are hard. There's a lot of non-food stuff in there that are food additives, right? That the FDA allows. FDA is the regulating body in North America, but they allow it because in small amounts it's not harmful. But who's eating this stuff in small amounts? People are eating a lot of this stuff, right? So you have to realize that the reason they make it cheaper is because they're producing it in large quantities. They're providing these farmers incentives to grow their the corn, all of these things. But vegetables, and especially vegetables that are organic, that are not sprayed with herbicides and pesticides and all of that, are more expensive because it's much harder and a lot more stricter to grow, right? And
I agree with you, but I do think as well, I think that I feel like there is a limiting belief. I feel like that there seems to be, and I could be wrong, but there seems to be a limiting belief that people hold, a story that we tell ourselves, that good food is expensive. Because when people think of good food, they're thinking of organic, they're thinking of Whole Foods in the States, they're thinking of, like extra virgin olive oil, and like you said, even coconut oil, avocado oil. And I would like to offer that if you go to the Asian shop, anyone here, you go to the Asian shop, you're going to find, and it may not be organic, so don't slice me up for this, but you will find a stunning array of fruits and vegetables. I mean, we have one local to us. I literally can fill my whole trolley from the fruit and vegetable aisle alone, right? Not to mention the lentils, the chickpeas, the kidney beans, and all the protein as well that you can get in big sacks. And then the fresh spices and the dried spices, etc. So do you think that we are telling ourselves that A, good food costs too much, and B, maybe that it's too much trouble maybe to even go through cooking? I know maybe not this audience. In our society though, people do feel like it's just too much trouble to cook healthy food. Like, what do you want me to do?
I feel like there are two parts to this, right? One is how you dollar.
I think the video is lagging. I think your video is lagging. Can you hear me? We're missing out on the good part. Do you want to turn your video off and on? Just to see if we can get you back. I'm trying to stop the video. Guys, let me know in the chat what you think while we try to get Sister Idil back on. You've been very quiet. So what do you think? Putri made a very interesting point where she says, I understand I'm all about eating good food, but my heart pains when I see some countries charge a lot for these beautiful products like olive oil, expensive, just a lot of expensive things. So how do we maintain this daily for the good food? So let me know in the chat or in the comments if you consider or you see that in your country, good food, natural food, whole food is actually more expensive and maybe out of your price range. you know, compared to like convenience foods? Go ahead, sis. Sorry, we lost you, and you were right answering.
What you froze, and then it was like bye. But I'm back. So two things about that. One, you have to prioritize what matters financially, right? We all like our food dollars. What is more important, quality of food or like something else? I choose to prioritize the quality of my food because I see it as medicine. But the other thing is there are options here. You know, not everything needs to be organic, right? There's certain way, like in terms of food, you need to choose like the dirty dozen that we all do. I don't know if everybody knows about this, but it's like foods that have thinner skin that pesticides and herbicides seep into. And so those foods I would choose, like strawberries, berries, foods with thin skin, like apples, all of that. Choose those on a more organic option. But like you could buy foods, like me and you could go in on like large quantities of food and buy like the sacks and divide it up. Two families could do that, right? And then
things like what, like onions, potatoes,
vegetables, meat especially, right? Because meat is really where the quality matters. Meat, milk, you know, these are the things that have the most, think about it. It's a living carcass that is now transferring everything it ate in its DNA to you. So the quality of meat really, really matters, right? It's really important it's better to eat less meat with better quality, right? That is food, like your chicken. It's really important that they like moved around because movement is it's important to their health, right? That they were farm raised. They don't necessarily have to be organic, but choose these options that are like better. Always move a step up. See how you could like pasture raised eggs, right? The eggs, dairy. If I were to do one thing today, I would go organic on the dairy because
what? Sorry?
I would go organic on like milk, right? Because milk has like mucus, some like blood in there, some like a lot of hormonal stuff that it can do.
Well, it's like if you're drinking someone's breast milk, like that's all the hormones that oh my God.
But you have to think these animals are not only, they're getting antibiotics, right? They're eating like grains, and they're not being fed the grass that they are supposed to be eating. They're not moving around. They are like living in inhumane conditions, right? And it's important to be like aware of that, because what it does, it gives information is power, right? So then when me and you say, okay, today we're gonna go buy meat, we're gonna spend this much, let's get like half a goat or something and split it up between our families. We're going to choose a higher quality meat and we're going to eat less of it, use it to flavor our food. And if you look at how our grandparents ate, they weren't eating meat all day long. Like they were eating meat in special occasions. They were putting it in sauces and soups and things to flavor things up. But then everybody got a little taste, but not a whole lot, And so that's why they were able to live healthier, longer, and like better quality of life.
SubhanAllah. So okay, guys. So what I'm hearing is, I'm just thinking of a cow.
Yes.
Think of just how much trauma our cows go through now, where obviously they're raised, in these huge like warehouses, and they're kept there. They get pregnant, and they give birth. The baby's taken away
all the time,
every time, which there must be some trauma there.
Trauma. Yeah, 100%.
Because that's not natural. Unless, of course, through the generations, cows have become used to that. I don't know. We will probably never know. I mean, someone's probably done a study somewhere. But just that thought of, basically they're giving birth to these calves. Calves are being taken away, and then they're being milked and milked and milked and milked. And whatever that cow, as you said, is experiencing, whether it is the trauma, whether it is the, just that environment, and then we're drinking their milk. It's a lot. it's a lot. It's a lot, subhanAllah. It's actually, it's a lot. And when you see those pictures of like chickens on battery farms, it really, really makes you think, like, as human beings, like what have we done, you know? And it's, you're always told it's because we need this. There's such a huge demand for it. We have to do it this way. Otherwise, we won't have enough food to eat. You know, what is the solution?
The thing is, when you said about the cows, it's nature versus nurture, right? But your nature is always what matters, right? Because how, as humans, we need certain things, like, you know, to eat, water, to move, to kind of keep on going, right? Same for them, right? So when you take certain things that are important to your nature, then there are consequences, not only
they have to give them chemicals and give them, and you know, all this antibiotics and all this kind of thing to stop them from getting sick and to make them grow big. I think we've all probably seen those horrifying images of, you know, these bulls that are just like oversized because of, you know, hormones and that kind of thing. Because that hormones are an issue too, aren't they?
They really are, because they're growing them at a higher speed. We've all bought chicken with the legs, like with chicken legs where the legs are broken, you know, yeah. Where like, yeah, that means that little chicken was like, it grew too fast, right? For its body to support it. And it was the use of hormones. And we're seeing it in our kids, younger and younger kids, especially girls, getting their periods at 8, at 9, which means their body's producing estrogen, and it's producing it at a higher rate. And this has a direct relation to your food, right? Women with hormonal issues, infertility, fibroids, endometriosis, having all of these things are all related. We're not living in a vacuum. Cancer, all of these things are related to the stuff that we're eating and what's going on with our environment. But there's a solution, right, to everything. So the goal is, how can I take charge and be accountable for what I'm eating and putting in my body?
I think that's really important, because I'm having a moment. Because there's so much, and you know, you know, we think about the kind of things that we've become used to, you know, yes. You know, obesity in children, for example, you know, as you said, you know, even things to do with, you know, like you said, early puberty, cancer, and you know, diabetes, hypertension, just like so much. And as you said, almost every one of them is linked to food.
Yes, and I want people to know anxiety and depression are also very much linked to food. And this is a conversation I am dying to have. I think I'm going to focus the whole month of November on that, because we forget how much our food, like our mental health, is not separated from our physical health. And the food we eat directly impacts all of that, right? So
what kind of food leads to kind of low mood or leads to anxiety or depression?
Really, it starts with our digestion. SubhanAllah, even in our deen, like all disease starts in your digestion is a real thing. And you need, I think everyone needs to take that seriously. For me, as a nutritionist, like I did my 4 years of university and then my internship, and then I went and worked in the field, and it took me getting sick myself and really like having digestive issues to shift how I looked at food. Because when you really feel that pain, you know, it comes from a place of like, it's very different, because it took 2 years for my doctor to say, you know, really it's about changing how you eat. And I was like, what? Well, day one, I told you what I did for a living. You asked, and here you are. It took you 2 years to tell me this information. And our doctors are not trained in nutrition. They are meant to put like band-aids on problems. They treat symptoms. They don't go to the root cause.
Wow.
It's quite important for us to start taking charge and advocating for ourselves and taking charge of our health. And when I say going back to our roots, I'm talking about really embrace your cultural foods. Think about how your grandparents ate. Really start asking questions about that, because eating in an ancestral or in a way that really supports our DNA DNA tells our body digests this food very differently. So for me, I'm from East Africa. Foods like sorghum, millet, eating things like more grains and vegetables, eating less portions because we were nomads, so foods were not being eaten all the time in large portions. These things are the ways my body recognizes, right? Eating with like my circadian rhythm, which means like getting up early in the morning after Salah, like really, because as nomads, if you think about it, we move from place to place.
Go with the sun.
Yeah. And you did things in the morning. You didn't go like you followed the sun, where we're not eating in the middle of the night, where, really. And so these things are really important. If you're someone from Asia, from Pakistan, or from India, really look at the foods cultural foods that supported and like your ancestors ate, because that is what's going to heal you, right? And that's a good place to start. But really,
question on this, please. Sorry, just to jump in. Got so many people who are, in this festival, part of this festival, who are from the diaspora. So their ancestral food, for example, in the case of African Americans, their ancestral food would be what is known as soul food, right?
Yes.
Which people argue is slave food. And not like what original, would have eaten, but also acknowledging that soul food as it is eaten today is actually not healthy. That it's high in saturated fats, it's high in salt and all that kind of thing, lots of sweet dishes, lots of butter and that kind of thing. So what's your advice for people who are saying, okay, but 3 generations back, like this is what we were eating? Is there something that they should be looking for in that diet? Maybe the more nutritional sides. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if we're looking at slavery and slaves and where they came from Africa, West Africa in particular, the slaves, when they were coming in these ships, sowed seeds in their hair so they can bring it over. And the things that we see in particular in the South, like, the sweet potato, the squashes, it's a lot of, and the grains, a lot of hearty vegetables that are eaten by these original, slaves that were brought. These are the things that we should be aiming for, like amaranth and callaloo and like collard greens and those vegetables, without like having to cook them in butter and like having them saturated with like, because we're so used to it. We have to remember our taste buds have changed. Like when we've been eating so many like modified foods, we cannot replicate what's been made in a lab. Like fructose corn syrup is like so high in sugar, and it hits such level of sweetness that natural food does not match. So when you
speak to that, actually, because a lot of people do feel like when they try to start making the kind of whole food journey or healthier eating transitioning, it's tough because it just doesn't taste as good. So why do we feel so happy and fulfilled when we're eating the bad stuff? And how can we transition so that we're able to change our palate to actually be able to appreciate the good stuff?
It's going to take some real detoxing of our palate and making changes. And it's like when people who smoke, when they stop smoking, it's like such a hard thing. But we have to recognize sugar is a drug. And these manufacturers, you're a customer, you are a dollar sign walking. And so if I am going to market to you, I'm going to give you flavors that you are going to be addicted to and keep coming back for. So things like MSG in soy sauce, MSG hits levels of like umami that like really no other food in nature can hit, right? So it keeps you coming back for that salty, sweet, like taste that is like, hits so many of your taste buds, right? So the goal is to remember the more natural foods you include in your diet, the more vegetables, the more fruits, in particular vegetables, the more your taste buds will naturally start changing, and you're going to start tasting the unnatural sweetness of these foods, right? So if I'm eating a salad before every meal, or like before with lunch and dinner, I'm going to now start to like crave less and less of that sugary stuff. And when I eat it, it's going to be too sweet for me.
It's like if you give up sugar for a little while, if you give up sugar and then you start reintroducing sugar, maybe before you have 3 spoons of sugar in your tea and it was, yeah, give me another one, right? But if you detox from sugar for a while and you try to have a cup of, guys, try this, yeah? Just try to go 7 days sugar-free and then try to have your tea or coffee the way that you had it before. You will not be able to stand it.
I'm going to give you an example. This is green juice. It has kale, it has spinach, it has celery, cucumber, and like I put an apple in there. To me, this is very, very sweet because of the apple, because I'm used to drinking it without the apple, right? The first time when I did to help my body transition, it was during Ramadan, right? Because you're fasting, and subhanAllah, like I really want to emphasize the importance of fasting. And Allah, like never, subhanahu wa ta'ala never does anything for like one reason. It's always multiples, right? You know, it teaches you how to be humble, how to like be, you know, to be like self, to sort of control the self and the nafs, right? The word that I'm looking for escaped me. Self-regulation is the word, right? How to regulate yourself, how to become, you know, how to get closer to Allah, ibadah, all of that. But what it does for the physical body is incredible, right? It helps your body heal. It helps your digestion actually like heal itself. When you fast, your body starts to break down after the first 8 hours. It starts to break down all the fat cells, right? And fat cells is where all our toxins are stored. So when this toxins are, helps push the toxins out of our body. It regulates our blood sugar. It helps push out the cholesterol from our body, right? It breaks it down. And then it also, what it does, all the protein buildup in our brain, all the like toxic protein buildup, it helps really break that down. So it helps with people with neurodegenerative diseases. But there's something called autophagy. It's a process of the body healing itself. So the cells, they start to eat up the bad part and then regenerate, right? And all of that happens during fasting, right? But that healing process that happens is really important for the body because we are not meant to be eating all the time the way we are right now. You know, the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam ate only to satisfy hunger, to stay, to keep his body strong, to keep his back straight, right? And if you, the hadith that says, you know, break your stomach into thirds, right? A third for water, a third for air, and a third for food. All of that is about portion control, and it's about giving the digestion, not overwhelming your digestion, right? So it kind of comes back. It's always a full circle thing. But for me, what I did was during Ramadan, you only eat like 2 meals. So during those 2 meals, I made sure that I was eating a lot more vegetables, soups, that are easy to digest, full of vegetables, full of grains. And it really helped my palate transition. Yeah. Because if you think about it, it takes 21 days to form a habit. 30 days, you're cementing these habits. Yeah. So initially, it was hard. I was like, oh my God. But after the 30 days, drinking coffee, it tasted like soap. I could never go back to eating like chocolate bars from the store because they're too sweet. Yeah. So, you know, there are ways that we can help our body transition, but not everybody's able to fast, right? And to fast for the 30 days or for long periods. But I promise you, if you start including more vegetables on your like plate and making it take more real estate on that plate, you will transition. And you will start to notice certain foods are no longer going to be like a part of your like diet because you're not going to be able to tolerate.
SubhanAllah. That's absolutely amazing. It's been absolutely just wonderful, you know, listening to you, you know, and learning from you. How can, you know, anybody who's listening to this and who wants to know more, how can they find you?
So my Instagram is Idil's World. My website, idilsworld.com. My email is nutrition@idilsworld.com. And it's really like, for me, my goal is to help women and people in general to really start becoming aware of like ways that they can use food as medicine and their kitchen as their pharmacy. This month, I'm focusing on fibroids and the importance of fibroid, like why that we need to know more about it, because it happens to like 50% of women and 80% of Black women. Let's
What?
just, yes, it is the most common tumor that we have in, like, most common benign tumor, and it happens to 80% of Black women. And it's happening and nobody understands it. And people only start to pay attention when they are having a hard time getting pregnant. So let's talk about it. And then I have a course coming up, 4-week course on stress and the impact of stress on our health. And it's really important to really understand what stress does to your body, because so many of us are stressed. So yeah, that's how we can stay in touch.
Fantastic. So guys, the branding is all in alignment. It's Idil's World on all the channels, mashallah. So please, will they be able to find details of the course in your Instagram, in your bio? Or
yes. Inshallah, that's coming up. It's going live Thursday. So bi'idhnillah, you can sign up then. For me, I want to make sure that as women, as caregivers, that we care for ourselves. Yes. We really have to start putting our health first. And for us Black people in general, with all the microaggressions that we face on a daily basis, all the stress that happens in our bodies, that we really have to start looking after ourselves as a form of resistance, as a form of self-care, as a form of, like, you know, because really we're susceptible to everything. We wanted to talk about immune health. We didn't make it.
We didn't even make it, and this is it.
We'll do a live. Let's do a live together, and we'll have a conversation.
We will definitely do a follow-up, guys. So listen, if you've enjoyed this, then please just, you know, post in the comments, in the chat. We had a nice small little group in Zoom today, but I know there are people watching on Facebook, mashallah. Sis, do join us in the Facebook group so that you can put your information in there, introduce yourself in the Facebook group, and let people contact you, inshallah. Guys, it's been amazing. We're going to wrap up here, inshallah, because we have the next session coming up in 5 minutes. So Jazakallah khair, and we've got some lovely comments here. You know, everybody is sharing. So Jazakallah khair, may Allah give you all the tawfiq and bless you and your family. And yeah, let's get that book out, inshallah, so we can
yes, inshallah.
Okay.
I wish you help. Can I make a dua before we go?
Sure.
اللهم إني أسألك العفو والعافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أسألك تمام العافية، دوام العافية، والغنى من الناس يا رب العالمين. العافية means wellness, and I say I mean to that for all of
I mean to that all day long. Jazakallah khairan, sis. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bye.